Hello, Motorado World fans, and welcome to this Talking MotoGP live on this Monday night post Silverstone MotoGP. Just a big apologies to everyone for delaying it by an hour. Just unforeseen circumstances. Going on a family trip tomorrow, so I took the car to the car wash to get ready and prepped for our 3.5 hour journey to Manchester tomorrow, and wanted to leave with more than enough time. I wanted to leave there at 6 o'clock UK time, so I would have been home, way before 7 to start the live chat, and car wouldn't start. Um, some fault came up, anti-theft fault, and key wasn't working, and it's all this key fob and ECU thing, and anyway, so beautiful wife came to the rescue, luckily, and got everything sorted. But yeah, unfortunately, that meant we had to delay by an hour. So I do apologize for that. A big thank you to everyone who has stuck around. Sven Grinner, Al Camino, Jonathan Murphy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jacques Smuts, hello, Uncle Rob and friends. And yeah, to everyone before that tuned in and tuned in at the right time, which was 8 p.m. SA time, 7 p.m. UK time, but didn't realize that I had put the message up to delay it. I do apologize. How's it, Uncle Rob? Hope the knee's feeling better. Dustin, it's feeling a little bit better, but yeah, I did take a lot of strain over the weekend. I think I averaged something like 17,000 steps the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Silverstone without the crutches and stuff. So yeah, it's feeling a little bit sick, and just, I don't know, doctors and they tell you to rest up, put your feet up. How do you do that these days? Even if I wasn't going to Silverstone and that, you got to work and kids and family and other things. No, who can afford to lie on a couch and put their leg up? I certainly can't. So yeah, hopefully 20th of September is my MRI appointment. At the moment, it's been diagnosed with a partial tear on the ACL. But yeah, I've been told by the doctors to just literally do nothing, and I've been doing the complete opposite. So it's not painful. It's just very uncomfortable. I have no movement in it. It's just certain kind of movements jolt it, and then it gets really sore. So it's a pain in the ass. I would, it really is just a pain in the ass. But thank you for asking. Will Aprilia be strong in the next few tracks? Sinead Smith, we'll get into that. Vimpy van den Berg's tuned in. Chris Shears, Peter Garmany, Colin JHB, Douglas Twig. Good evening, Robert team. Our Brad showed mental grit coming from what happened in the last race. Pure class. I couldn't agree with you more. Brian Ritchie. Brian, thank you for tuning in. Rian van Rensburg. Dylan Conway. Dylan, I need you answer your phone call, but sorry, I've just been hectic busy. Michael Rogers Art, I gave your present to Simon Crayfar. He was thrilled. Just the timing, wasn't able to get a photo of him getting it on him because it was in the media debrief, and between me and him being so busy, it's very hard to kind of do it. But Michael, he promised me he will take a picture, send it to me, but he is very, very grateful. Thank you so much. Sven Gruner, come on, everybody, hit that like button. Yeah, please hit that like button. Let's get as many likes as we possibly can. Mike Teal, good evening, Rob, from my grandson, Leon Townsend, and I hope you are lovely. Hope you and your lovely family are well. We're anxiously waiting your input on the two incidents on the weekend. Mike and Liam, thank you so much for always tuning in. And that's exactly where we are going to start. How's it, Uncle Rob from Surrey? Was awesome being at the track this weekend. Chris van Beek, so sorry I didn't see you. If I was a little bit more mobile, but yeah, that Silverstone, as amazing as it is, it's very disconnected because it's such a big track. It's very disconnected compared to some other tracks that I've been to. Jerez, you can literally walk on the service roads and you can walk the whole track, and the vibe's great because everything's together. The Silverstone, there's no service roads. The viewing points aren't fantastic. It's just this big business park basically. So yeah, you got to catch a shuttle here and walk here. So yeah, my movements were very limited outside of the paddock. So hopefully next year we'll get to do it. Jake Dixon has now joined the group. YouTube user, I like that YouTube user, Jake Dixon. I would love to have Jake Dixon on the show to explain his I'm trying to think of a nice word to say, to explain his stupidity. So we'll start there now. I just want to make sure I'm saying hello to everyone. Luis Falcao, how are you? Andre Kruger, Starsky Williams, good evening, Uncle Rob. A lot to talk about tonight. Yes, we do. You're looking so smooth. who you trying to schmooze, Colin? I'm trying to schmooze my wife. I've been away from home with work and that's so much that yeah, I'm trying to schmooze my wife. I'm trying to schmooze my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wife. It was a little bit with Andre Kruger. So anyway, Mario de Sosa, is that a joke that Dixon has joined the group? Yeah, Mario, I'm pretty sure it is a joke. If it is Dixon, I'd love him to tune in. Send me his email address and I'll get him on the show. But I'm pretty sure it's a joke. Let's start the two real big talking points coming out of the weekend. We'll start with the Pecco Bagnaia in the main race on Sunday. I just don't. It's the race stewards are just trying to get a bunch of us on an aeroplane to their houses and burn packets of dog poo on their porches because it's just absolutely mental. So cast your minds back to Assen. Brad Binder skims. But I mean, skims, it's like, I don't even know how that sensor went off in the sprint race. In the main race, it was a little bit more, but in the sprint race, certainly it like skimmed the green. Penalty, back a position or 3 seconds, whatever his penalties was. Either way, Brad got penalized twice for going on the green and triggering the sensor. Like I said, the first one, it was very debatable on the sprint race. The main race, there was a little bit more clarity that he did, but anyway. Pecco Bagnaia, fantastic ride from Pecco Bagnaia. Listen, take nothing away from him. In those tricky conditions, he set the pace. He was the yardstick. He got out front, never made any mistakes, and he did a fantastic job. A true champion's performance, especially after the disaster that was the sprint race on Saturday, which I didn't ever think Pecco Bagnaia was going to risk too much in those conditions. It would have been silly. Yes, he lost a couple of points to Marco Bezzecchi, but look what happens the next day. Bezzecchi crashes. Pecco Bagnaia extends his championship lead because his nearest rival, Martin, finished in 5th place. Brad obviously finished in 3rd, just behind him, but Pecco was in 2nd. The only person he lost major points to was Aleix Espargaro, who's not really in the championship. Anyway, so brilliant ride from Pecco, but last lap he gets overtaken by Aleix, comes out of that right-hander, and it's very similar to that corner at Assen, because as you come out at the riders try and straight line it as much as possible to get the bike upright on the fat part of the tire and let the bike accelerate, because the more you got the bike cranked, the more the electronics work. So he picks it up and he skims. When it happened in the live feed, you were kind of like, oh, was it or wasn't it? Even the commentators were like, was it, wasn't it? Then nothing happens. Cool, no penalty. The picture that we've all seen out on social media and the slow motion replays, clear as day, Pecco Bagnaia skims the green, just marginally, but he goes on the green. KTM, on the KTM team WhatsApp group, said they protested and they've been given an answer that the sensor wasn't triggered and they've looked at camera angles, no penalty. Now, this is where my argument goes back. The human element has to come back into motorcycle racing. The human factor, the common sense racing factor has to come back into MotoGP. And both incidents of this is another pure point that it needs to. Okay, so the sensor didn't trigger. Fine. It's technology. Technology fails. Technology, there will never be such a thing as the most consistent technology that never fails. I love my iPhone 14 Pro Max D-5064 that has Siri that can run my life for me and do everything. But once every 2 weeks, I've got to reset it because, the screen kind of stops working or something. My laptop that I do all my work on, love it. It's been brilliant to me. But every now and then, you got to glitch it and you got to reset things and whatever. It's technology. It's man-made technology. There's no such thing as the perfect human being. We all make mistakes. So the sensor's not triggered. Okay. That doesn't mean he didn't go into the green. Just because the sensor doesn't trigger, it doesn't mean. Okay, so common sense prevail, people. Now, they say they've looked at every camera angle. Well, clearly they didn't look at the camera angle that the 16 gazillion billion of us have seen on social media, where it's a clear indication that Pecco Bagnaia went onto the green. Hence, he deserves a penalty. No penalty is forthcoming. So how does this work? Okay, so here's these inconsistencies we're talking about again. Okay, it's absolutely pathetic. I like Rian van Rensburg's comment here. Pecco tire pressure was not too flat to touch the sensor. Listen, you could bring that into the debate about the tire pressures and everything. It's either way. Adam Sweeting, commentators even called it out when they did. He went on and he went on, and then you kind of saw it and you went, Jesus, he's gone on the green, and then you kind of second guessed yourself in a way. But then the evidence afterwards it's there. It's like, I wanted to say black and white. It's black and green. It's as clear as daylight. And the race steward should look at that and go, well, if you take that to court, are you telling me that's not going to hold up in court, that picture of Pecco Bagnaia on the green? Of course it is. It's clear evidence that anyway. So they've got it completely wrong. The human factor needs to come back into MotoGP. You cannot rely purely on that sensor. That sensor, it poured with rain. Anything could have happened to that sensor. It's a split second. Pecco Bagnaia was on that green for a split second. So all it takes is for that sensor to malfunction that split second. How do you trust it? There's a picture. Penalize the guy. Okay, first incident. Race direction got it disgustingly wrong. And race direction, never mind race stewards, race direction made a lot of bad mistakes, because all the riders on Saturday after the FP3 session said none of them were happy. They were cursing DORNA and race direction. Let me tell you, in the rider debriefs, they were saying they don't care about their lives, how they let them out on that racetrack. Brad said there was a piece of debris and fairing lying all over the track. There's those pictures of him like that, shot by Rob Gray from Polarity Photo, of Brad, looks like he's on purpose getting this bike sideways in the wet to kind of avoid this piece of fairing line. It wasn't. He said to me, literally hit like puddles of mud, like actual mud that had formed on the track from riders going off but coming back on. The track was in an atrocious, life-threatening condition, and go race, go ride, off you go. So yeah, the riders were very, I mean, you could see Alicia Spargo, he was kind of voicing his opinion on the camera, showing that, he wasn't happy that they were going out. Qualifying slightly better, but, so a lot of mistakes made by race direction and race steward this weekend. They said Brad was too far behind him. Bullshit. Brad was just, yeah, Vimpy, that's just the worst excuse ever, because Brad was, it's either a 3-second penalty or you drop a position. From the understanding of the rules that we're all told and that's been executed at Assen, those are the rules. So Pecco Bagnaia should have been demoted in that situation. I think it should have been 3 seconds in that, which means he would have been off the podium, because Miguel Oliveira wasn't that far behind. But anyway, he didn't get a penalty. He's not going to get a penalty. Shocking, disgusting, horrible. Race direction, race stewards, what are you doing? Open your eyes. It's as clear as day. Anyway, another incident involving a South African, Darren Binder and Jake Dixon, who, I'm pretty sure I'm not speaking for myself here, but who I've lost all respect for, to be honest. What was it, Jake Dixon? I'm a fan of all of the guys racing these motorcycles, because what they do, they're putting their lives on the line, they're risking a lot, they pour their hearts and souls into it. And, some things you can forgive and some things you can kind of, okay, that was, and move on. What Jake Dixon did this weekend and the way he acted was just pathetic. How DORNA have let that happen. So we've got youngsters watching the sport, right? Okay, well, let's go to the incident first, right? So come out this, it's a left, and you go right, and then right, it's a right-hander. Okay, so Jake Dixon runs wide. The rest 2 or 3 riders are all on line coming through. So Darren Binder comes on his inside. So now at this point, Darren Binder is turning right. So he's not looking left at Jake Dixon saying, oh, sorry, do you want to come back? Like, I apologize. It's your home round. You're the greatest rider that's ever been, on this planet. Valentino Rossi has nothing on you. Marc Marquez has nothing on you. Brad Binder has nothing on you. I have nothing on you. Please, you're going to win this championship. Please teach me the ways. Come back across. Who's the idiot? Who is the idiot? So Darren Binder sees a gap, takes a gap, following the rest of the race, following the pack, looking right, next minute, feels a bump, and there goes down to Dixon. and now it's Darren Binder's fault. Okay, and I'm so glad that picture came out today. I'm so glad that picture came out today. If you haven't seen it, check out my personal Facebook page. I've posted it on there. So there's the whole train of bikes, including a Darren Binder, and then there's a Jake Dixon out here. So what's going to happen? So Jake Dixon comes across at a corner that tightens up, that no one passes there, and he comes and he literally turns and rides into Darren Binder and crashes, and it's Darren Binder's fault, and Darren Binder gets a long lap penalty. I mean, it's again, human factor has to come, common sense has to come into play here. Freddie Spencer, of all people, I'm sure you're all feeling just the way I am. It is just disgusting. The only words to you that you can use with race direction or race stewards at the moment is disgusting. How that is a long lap penalty, I don't know. And then for Jake Dixon to come out, you look at like Liam Townsend, who watches us with his granddad. Okay, so we have a lot of youngsters that watch MotoGP. There were a lot of youngsters there on the weekend, a lot of Jake Dixon young fans, a lot of young Darren Binder fans. They look at that behavior that a Jake Dixon can go on international TV and call someone, never mind Darren Binder, forget Darren Binder for a second, to call a fellow professional idiotic, a clown, ban him, this and that and this, is just the most. What is that teaching youngsters? Is that sportsmanship? No. So why is this man not getting a penalty for his actions off the track? Because that's just, in my eyes, that's just as bad as taking someone out on track. Because it's not teaching anyone anything. It's bad sportsmanship. So that's kind of justifying to youngsters, if something happens to you and you don't like it, you can just go, just explode and voice your opinions. DORNA, in my mind, should put their foot down with this and make an example of Jake Dixon, to set an example for these young racers coming up, from the Red Bull rookies, from the mini GPs, from Moto3, everything. Because that was just pathetic behavior. Jake Dixon, and I hope this does somehow get to Jake Dixon. I would love it. Jake, you've got to have a good look at yourself, my friend, because what you did on that day and what you said, you've lost all my respect. You have lost all my respect as a person and as a professional. Done. Said and done. And I think you've done it to a lot of people. And you did it to yourself because of your frustrations at your home GP for crashing out in qualifying by yourself. No one helped you, although I'm sure you'll complain there was an ant with a hard outer body that you probably rode into. There's going to be some kind of excuse. There's always an excuse. And from what I've heard, a lot of personal mates have messaged me within the UK network. Andy Jamison posted it on my post saying, Jake Dixon, great rider. We know how great he is and this and that. But even in his BSB days, he was known, for this crybaby complaint attitude. You can't be like that. You cannot be like that in this modern day world. And Jake Dixon, done. Race stewards, done. There's no more defending you. You are the worst thing that's happened to MotoGP. I'm trying to think of other bad things that have happened. You're just the worst thing that's ever happened to MotoGP. End of story. Freddie Spencer, you have tarnished whatever kind of respect and hierarchy, and you've tarnished all of that, because you don't do it for the love of sport. You do it for a paycheck, and you don't make the right decisions based on rationality, common sense. You don't use any of those factors. You're biased. It was Darren Binder, so you saw another opportunity to point the finger and discipline Darren Binder. That's what you saw there. The Pecco Bagnaia incident, and I'm not taking this out personally on Pecco, because listen, you don't expect Pecco to come out and say, "I'll touch the green." It would have been nice if there was a little bit, but if he's going to get away with it, he's going to get away with it. And at the end of the day, it's a couple more championship points. Why should he? But DORNA, and I saw it again this weekend with DORNA, they are so European biased in the paddock, off track, on track. It's revoltingly scary where they're taking the sport. They are so lucky that they've got these personalities, the Bagnaias, the Binders, and that show, that keeps us all intrigued, because the rest is just a sour taste. The rest you just don't want to be involved with. When I go to the racing now. I go and I get stuff signed. It's another way of making a little bit of extra money on the side now. Before we moved to the UK, it was a way of surviving with my daughter and the needs that she needed in South Africa to pay for her medical bills and her therapy bills. Most importantly, we've moved to the UK. Her care plan's almost done, and she gets looked after here. So it's not a case of raising money for my daughter anymore. Of course, whatever money I get goes to my daughter anyway, because not only my daughter, my wife and my son and myself. But if I have the opportunity to get things signed and sell them and make a bit of money on the side, great. But I don't go to MotoGP. And this weekend I really did have a sour taste in my mouth being at Silverstone, because DORNA just they take the love out of the sport in so many ways. They've done a lot of right, and they do a lot of right, and they get things right. But I'm there with my media pass, which I've done through them, but they make me feel like an outcast. They make, what I mean? I'm not European, just sit in the corner and kind of just have the pass, but just sit in the corner and be quiet. There's no like embrace and saying, come on, South Africa, we want more of Africa. That's why there's not going to be any MotoGP coming to Africa anytime soon. DORNA have no desire. I know they say they do. That's just to entertain, because we've got two Binder brothers in the paddock and Rushaim Woodley coming through. But yeah, it's such a pity. It's such a pity. I had another mate who spent the weekend with me, Harvey Taylor, who's trying to break into the paddock, with his company, offering team sponsorship proposals and rider sponsorships, and again they just kind of shut him down, and it's just a pity. It's MotoGP has their own little ecosystem, and they just refuse to let people in. Last year, my first 5 races with going to all the races, and you're frowned upon. It was only like from race 6 onwards that I kind of was starting to get accepted by some of the other teams and a lot of other people around. Before that, you very much get frowned upon, like, who are you, what you're doing here, what are your intentions and stuff. And listen, I'm no saint. I've broken some of the kind of rules and procedures within the paddock, and I've had to learn my lesson. But you learn and you move on. It's not a case of label him for the rest of his life. And it just seems like they do that in the paddock. And it's DORNA just need to get that stick out their bums. I know Liam's watching, so I'm not going to use any foul language, but they need to get the sticks out of their bums and just let the sport be. And I know there's a safety factor to it, but trust the riders. Just trust the riders. Don Faree put the post up saying, just take the green paint away and put the grass back. And in a way, I agree with it, because then the riders won't go there. If that was grass and Pecco had touched that, he would have had a wobble. He would have lost a little bit of time, and Brad would have probably passed him. So that's your penalty for exceeding track limits. Now, okay, well, cool. The sensor doesn't work. It's a sensor doesn't work. So, KTM spend millions and millions and millions on aero and this and that and that and that for second position to be taken away because a sensor doesn't work. Jesus. Like I said, iPhone, Tesla, all these mighty high people that are the latest, greatest inventions, they all have failures. Clearly their technology is not up to scratch, as it should be reviewed and paused for now until they have a reliable system like ball tracker in cricket and tennis. Jaco does. Jaco, I agree with you, but if you look at football, Premier League football, with the VAR and that, how many times has VAR got it wrong? It's like clear as day, and VAR have got it wrong with the handball. And you're like, so what's the point of bringing in technology when, like you said, the systems are still flawed? And so what are we here for? What are we here for? Why couldn't Freddie Spencer and Ray Stewards look at that picture afterwards and go, okay, well, are we all seeing the same thing? Yes. Like the rest of the entire world? Yes. Well, we've got to give him a penalty. It's there. How does Pecco sit down and Ducati sit down and argue that? But, and this is just coming to my head now, this is where DORNA have screwed themselves, because Ducati will just go to them and say, but the sensor didn't go off. Okay, so I said that picture should be clear as day in court. If they do go to court, that picture will go around, but then Ducati will say, yes, but the sensor didn't go off, and they looked at it from camera angles. Okay, so you got one picture, yay, but what's the sensor there for? So they're putting all this, reliance on this technology that, what's wrong with Freddie Spencer's eyes and the other people's eyes? And it's there for all of us to see. You're messing it up, Dorna. You're messing it up, and we love the sport so much. That's why we are still here. But come on now, sort it out, please. I want to see Daz and Dixon in the ring. Jorge de Cunha, I hope I said that right, or Jorge de Cunha. I want to see Daz and Dixon in the ring. I'd love to see that. Apparently, rumblings from in the paddock, Dixon did go up to Darren, and pretty much what he said in the interview, he said to Darren's face. But Darren, in that situation, hats off to Darren. He kept his cool. I think his media release afterwards was brilliant. And I feel for Darren. Yes, he's had his mistakes, and he's done some silly things. We know that. Again, he's a human being, and he's made mistakes. But the mistakes that he hasn't made, and he's been punished, like here with the long lap penalty, and with what Jake Dixon said, he just doesn't deserve it. He just doesn't deserve it. And I feel for the guy, because he's a tough kid, Darren, and I know he won't take it completely to heart, but there will be a piece of him that does go, for goodness sake, what do I do on a racetrack? Do I just not do anything? Is that how I kind of, clear my name? It's just not fair. It's just absolutely not fair. Pecco was more than once on the green paint. Dylan Conway. I didn't see any others, to be honest. I wasn't paying that much attention, but that's why I said, even watching it live before, as soon as he did it, your reaction was like that was the green, and for everyone to have that reaction, something must have happened. But yeah, I don't know. It's heartbreaking in many ways, because they are ruining the greatest. They should have a poll from the viewers. Carl Swanson. It's a fan sport, and this is what Dorna are forgetting. They let the fans in if you've got enough money. If you've got enough money, they let the fans in. But in a way, I think letting fans have decisions, it will open up a whole new can of worms. I understand that, and it'll just create drama. And it's kind of the sport's way too big to have all the fans' input. I understand, but like I said, it's there on social media for everyone to see. Surely Dorna should look at that. The 99% of people going, what, that's in the green, and surely they should take that into consideration. Surely, if that was Brad, I'm sure he would have gotten a penalty. Cyril Gaming. Well, this is the thing, because there's no justification afterwards. There's no Simon Crayford putting the mic in Freddie Spencer or whoever else, one of the guys are on the panel, saying, right, explain yourselves. Because there's none of that, it leaves us going, well, you are biased, because how can we look at it any other way? Because when Brad Binder does it, not on a European passport, he gets penalized. When a Pecco Bagnaia does it, a Marc Marquez does it, or Jorge Martin does it, any rider with a European passport, it's kind of swept under the rug. There needs to be justification. Dorna need to make it that after the race stewards, right, you've got to now, for the fans, you've got to explain yourselves. You've got show us the camera angles that you looked at to make that decision. Forget the sensor. Cool, the sensor didn't go off. Great. What camera angles did you look at to make that decision? Because the camera angle we've seen, it's clear as day that he's crossed the line. So show us these things, and put it in a file with a danger sticker on, and put it in Area 51 or whatever it's called, away from the world. Involve us. We want to know. That's why we love Simon Crayford so much, because he goes and he says, I've just seen Marc Marquez. They've pulled those forks through by 10 mil, and it does this and it does this. And I've just seen this. And, that's what we want. We want the inside information. We don't get exposed enough. And that's the frustrating thing for me. I'm in that paddock, and I want to go into the Suomi truck and show how the helmets are done. I want to show how many helmets Brad has, and Bjorn Esmond's job. I want to, we all think that Bjorn just takes a helmet, wipes the visor, and cleans leathers, and that's it. It's so much more to it. I would love to, shadow Bjorn Esmond over a race weekend and document it and put it out. From an SA point of view, no, not allowed doing anything in the paddock. All the rights are to Dorna, but all they do is they focus on the same people: Mark Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia. No. Jack and Brad getting a little bit of airtime now, thankfully, because KTM are doing a great job. But there's this whole other side to MotoGP that we're not giving. We don't get the information. Why the race stewards are not held accountable and said, right, you're coming in front of a camera, explain yourself. How did you make that decision? The Darren Binder incident, how did you make that decision? Was it purely on, there was contact and a rider crashed, so he must have a long lap? How did you determine that Darren Binder deserved a long lap penalty? And forget about Darren Binder. Forget it's Darren Binder. Say it was another rider. Say it's, how you justify that incident between two riders as the rider on the inside gets a long lap? You've got to explain it to me, because clearly I've been doing motorcycle racing wrong for all these years, because it's as common sense can be. You go to short circuit racing, that kind of move happens every single turn. You go to a track day, that every single turn just about. So what's different with MotoGP? Because it's Jake Dixon. I hope you're good at another sport, Jake, because I don't see you carrying on very much in that paddock, if it were up to me. I love his comment afterwards when Neil Archin says, what's the plan for the rest of the year? Well, I've got nothing to lose. I'm out of the championship. Jake, you were never in the championship. You won a race. Well done. Hats off. Brilliant. Winning a Moto2 race is no mean feat, and you did it. Sensational. And I did. I went. Brilliant. Dixon, I'm a fan. You've chucked all that away. But you were never really in the championship. And if you still do think you are, then, you've given up very quickly. You really have given up very quickly. Pecco Bagnaia was 93 points behind at one stage, and he fought back. So you're not very tough, my friend. You're not very tough at all. Then he still says, so what's the plan for the rest of the year? Well, I'm just going to go, and now it's just going to go win as many races as I can. Well, surely that should be your motive for every single race. Again, I want to use and call him names, but I'm not going to stoop down to his level. Dixon, have a good hard look at yourself. Have a good hard look at that incident. And if you are really honest with yourself, you'll know what you did was embarrassing, was disrespectful, was just pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And if you look at the incident again and you're completely honest with yourself, you will know that it was your own fault. It was absolutely your own fault. They should just bring back the bloody grass. Ethan Swart, completely agree. Brad on fire. Where's this? Donovan van Yen and Brad on fire. Simon says KTM must now just bring that little remain part. He needs to be complete. We know he can win this championship if he has a complete package. So Donovan, let me tell you again, this weekend, I stood at various points where I could walk to and watch the races and the sessions. And a lot of people, you stand there and they talk amongst themselves, and kids and guys, and go, right, who's going to take this one? And let me tell you, the three most often mentioned names when it comes to what's your prediction for this session or this race or whatever, it's Jack Miller, Brad Binder, and Pecco Bagnaia. Honestly, 99% of the time it was those three names. Mark Marquez, still very much a celebrity in the paddock. There's still a big crowd around his truck to get autographs. Fabio Quartararo has fizzled out, and I'll get onto that next talking subject just now. Brad Binder and Jack Miller, I promise you, are the bee's knees in that paddock, are the absolute favorites in that paddock. I can tell you now, VR46 merch is still very apparent. VR46, there's still a lot of yellow around, but Red Bull KTM is the second best, and it's closing. And a mixture of Jack Miller. If anything, Brad Binder just sneaks it ahead of Jack Miller, especially at Silverstone, where, the UK is, I think 90% of the population is South Africans that have immigrated, including myself. But Red Bull KTM merch everywhere. Like they really have become the new kind of popular, the new blue-eyed boys of MotoGP, the poster childs of MotoGP. Brad Binder, wherever he goes, him and Jack, and they smile, and it's autographed. And let me tell you, the UK, there were guys walking around with you know, roller bags, like gear bags. You're riding gear bags. They were rolling around with two of those. There were about 4 or 5 of these guys the whole weekend, walking around with those, stuffed with gloves, blank helmets, pictures and pictures. And they got these guys to sign millions. And I still remember standing there towards the end on Saturday, and Jack still said, "Come on, guys, how many things are you going to make me sign?" Like as a joke, but like seriously, guys, this is becoming a bit. And they don't care. Or you must, you're property to us. Shut up and sign. And they do it. So I spoke to a good mate of mine that works at Ducati, not necessarily in the motorsport side, but at Ducati, head office Ducati, a big part of Ducati as well. And he just said, best rider, Binder. They want him in red. They want him in red. I don't think so. From what I saw again this weekend, the unity between Brad and that KTM team is just too strong. I honestly cannot see Brad going anywhere. I cannot see KTM letting Brad go. There's an unbreakable bond there. There's an unbreakable bond between Brad Binder and that KTM team. And when I say team, I'm talking higher management, his mechanics, backroom staff, that whole environment. There's an unbreakable bond there. And Brad, the more you look at it, the more you understand it. We've always said, Brad, go to Ducati and win. It's not that easy. Look at Enea Bastianini and some other exercises where it's proved. Brad's in this environment where he's comfortable. He can be honest with his team. His team know him. There's no language barrier. There's nothing. If Brad were to go to a factory Ducati, there's now a little bit of a language barrier. Yes, there's English involved, but it's a very Italian biased team. Jack Miller will tell you. Okay, Scott Redding, another British rider that likes to complain a little bit too much. He will tell you that Italians are hard to deal with. So now that Brad kind of just end all this hard work that he's putting with his team, and they finally have this, this as I said, this unbreakable bond to go to a Ducati team where now there's going to be a little bit of miscommunication and understanding, and it's not our fault, it's your fault. And it seems that way with Ducati. If you don't like our bike, it's not our fault, it's your fault. And Enea Bastianini's feeling that, which I'll get to just now as well. So anyway, back to Brad and KTM, and that they're taking over MotoGP. The Valentino Rossi shirts and the caps are still there, but Red Bull KTM is, people say, how does Red Bull pay to sponsor Formula One? And let me tell you, just in merch sales alone, Red Bull KTM are doing just fine. It's not a penalty if it's more than half a second. Been that way all along. Brian Smith, it's not a penalty if it's more than half a second. Been that way all along. Not quite understanding that, Brian, to be honest. The track limit cable is laid skew in that corner. The service TV commentators pointed this out. That is why the track limits warning was not activated. Brian Ritchie, thanks for that information. That's the first time I'm hearing that. Brad was 0.47 behind. The rule says striking distance is half a second. So he should have dropped back one place to behind Brad. There you go. Thank you for that, Daryl Bryce. Dustin Delaporte. So I'm just catching up now after my rant with no respect for Dixon. Compare Dixon incident to Maverick clattering into Jack. Well, it smacks either incompetence or favoritism from the stewards. They can pick. There needs to be a change in that stewards panel. There needs to be a change because it's not working. It's absolutely not working. Raymond and Jay Dixon has left the group like he left the Apex open for Darren. YouTube user, I like it. I like it. I'm enjoying those comments. Jake, the fastest rider, Rob. Rian, Jake's the greatest invention to ever happen. Lee Bennett, do you blame TNT? This is a very good question. Do you blame TNT for interviewing so soon after the incident, or telling Jake what he can and can't say about other riders? Terrible from Jake. Lee, in a way I do, but at the same time, Jake's, TNT, were they opening up a can of worms by going and interviewing a very angry Jake Dixon in his home round with a Darren Binder involved? Yes, but at the same time, it's up to the rider to be professional. It's up to the team and his PR to go, Jake, listen, they're coming to interview you, but just come on, just keep it civil. Have your say. If he had said, there's many other ways he could have said what he wanted to say without saying it in a disrespectful, horrific way that he did. But he didn't. So is it TNT's fault? No, to me, it's purely Jake Dixon. Yeah, it's purely Jake Dixon. I don't want to say anymore because it does make my blood boil, and I do want to, stoop down to his level by using silly words, and I'm not going to do that. Was all Dixon's fault. TNC shouldn't have interviewed Jake after it was bad journalism. Yeah, I understand that argument. I do, but Brian Smith, Freddie wouldn't have wanted to be penalized the way he does it. I saw him live and he rammed everyone out of the way. So talented. So Brian, yeah, I mean, I've heard that from a couple of people that Freddie Spencer was a little bit before my era type thing, but a lot of people said, if today's Freddie Spencer was race steward for Freddie Spencer in his day, Freddie wouldn't have won many races or championships because he just would have been penalized the whole time. So I don't know. And this is what I want. I just want clarity from them. How are they coming up with these decisions? How are they making these decisions? How do they look at that Darren and Dixon incident and come up with that? How do they? What camera angles did they look at for the Pecco incident? I don't know. I just don't know. The English media were quick to get behind Dixon too. Yeah, of course they. Dixon's supposed to be, the British. I know I live here and stuff, and I'm probably going to lose a lot of UK mates. But the UK are so desperate for a rider to go to MotoGP, and Jake Dixon is supposed to be that rider. Again, I won't say too much more because it might, I live here, so I must be careful. I don't want, a packet of dog poo on my porch with a number 96 on it. They're going to take away your media pass, Rob. Would not put it past them. Jaco does. Jaco, every time I go to a MotoGP and I get my media pass and I go upstairs into the media room and I see the media press officer from Dorna, I kind of cringe. I'm waiting for her to go, Rob, just come into the office here quickly. I don't know. Maybe one day it'll happen, but honestly, MotoGP needs a bit of honesty in it. For me, it needs a bit of honesty in it. A couple of journalists came out this weekend, which I was happy to see, especially with the Pecco Bagnaia incident, coming out and voicing their opinions, which is great. I'm not going to mention names again. Other journalists come out and just say stupid things just to, I don't know what, just to get people to just clickbait and they just want to be in the spotlight, so they say something stupid. But it needs a good dose of honesty in it, MotoGP for me, and South Africans are diehard supporters. When we support something, we support it with everything we have. We give our all to it, and it's just so frustrating when there's a sour taste left in your mouth for unjustified decisions that aren't clarified or put into any kind of context. It's horrible. If F1 go to South Africa, MotoGP will Dorna just copy F1. Greg Ellis. Greg, I don't know. I mean, I spoke to a lot of people about it this weekend as well, about the potential of MotoGP going to South Africa, and Kalami is the only realistic option. I know Pakisa has been talked about for years and years and years now. Someone's going to invest billions and fix it up, and you know what I mean. I'm tired of hearing those stories. The reality is someone's got to put up a good amount of money. Anything between 30 and 40 million. I don't want to say rands, but I actually want to say euros. Let's call it 20 million euros to host a MotoGP, which you'll get back through ticket sales, TV rights, and an end. Okay. So someone's got to put that money up first. Someone's then got to put money up to make changes to Kyalami to make it MotoGP safety spec. Facilities and that are great. They do need to make more accommodation for potential people camping. Every other track around the world, people go and they camp. Where are you going to camp at Kyalami? Where are you going to camp? There's nowhere to camp. If you do get, a massive ton of spectators, 100,000 bikers, where are they going to park their bikes and cars and camper vans and, the containers and, there's a lot of logistical that goes to it. And then, like I said, they've got to, fill out some spaces for runoff in some of the corners. Some of the corners just, there's not enough runoff in terms of MotoGP and Formula One. You've then got to make hospitality. You've got to put up these big fancy hospitalities, especially for Formula One. People want to be wined and dined at these races. They spend a lot of money. You've got to, have 5-star hotels at the track as hospitalities. Where are you going to do these things? And who's going to pay for it? And who's going to get that money back? What's the ticket price going to be? A general entry ticket for the weekend, 2,000-3,000 rand per person. You and your wife want to go before you even think about fuel, accommodation, food, or anything. It's good, 5 grand. So to go watch MotoGP just on a grandstand, 6, 7, 8 grand for a weekend. In the current financial climate, you know what I mean. Do the math. It just doesn't add up. And like I said, I don't think if DORNA really wanted to make it happen, they would have made it happen. They want to make it happen if it's financially beneficial to them, of course, which is fine, which any company would do. Listen, I'm not saying DORNA shouldn't do that, but that's how it is. Such how it is. When is Simon coming on the show again? Andre Kruger, I was supposed to have him not last week, the week before. No, it was last week. And when Simon was available, I wasn't available. When I was available, Simon wasn't available. I will get him. It's tough now when there's so many races kind of back to back. And again, DORNA block all the rights. So legally, I can't talk to Simon Crayford kind of during a race week. So it'll have to be when we find a little bit of a gap. But yeah, just keep all those questions lined up there for Simon Crayford. And, these kind of incidents, because we'll have a lot to chat about. Mohammed, Rob, can you ask questions in the press conference? Mohammed, again, this is where kind of the bias shows through a little bit. You've got to, kind of put your name in the hat to ask a question, which I've done a couple of times and just never seem to get selected. The same people get selected every time, and they ask the same. I'm going to use funny words again. The same boring questions. So again, it's, MotoGP have their own little ecosystem. They've got the people they trust and that they want, and that they've scripted and molded the way they want them, and that's what they like. They don't like, someone like myself coming in with maybe a fresh approach to ask slightly different questions or kind of break the mold in a way. They don't like it. They tolerate it because they give me a media pass. And at the beginning it was hard to get that media pass. I had to kind of say I wasn't getting given a media pass, and I had to kind of, there's one South African motorcycle journalism media company asking for a media pass, and we have 2 South Africans, 3 with Rishane Woodley in your championship. If there were 100 or 200 or even 5 or even 2 SA motorcycle media companies asking for a pass, maybe there's one, and you know what I mean. And I had to fight tooth and nail to get it in. To their credit, they offered me a full-time pass for this year, so a permanent pass, so I don't have to keep applying around like I currently do. But then there's, you've got to attend at least 80% or 75% of the championship. But this year, I was never going to commit to, because last year I was able to because I didn't have my family with me, and this year I have my family with me. I'm not going to commit to that many races because, I want to be with my family. So I did decline that full-time pass because I didn't want to take the pass and then they see me at Portimao and Silverstone, which were the only 2 I was realistically going to do. Then I'm abusing the system, which I don't want. I want to contribute towards the system. So again, they've done great things and they do great things. But then when incidents like this happen over the weekend and other things, you just go, what's the point? What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing here? So I'm just scrolling down. Well done on the rant, Uncle Rob. We're all feeling the same way. I'm glad you have the platform to voice the opinion we all share. Well said. They need to hear it. Byron Nietling, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I am. I'm glad that I can have this platform to voice it. And that's why I made a point of it. And I'm so glad. This is where South Africans are fantastic. Straight after that incident, they came onto social media and backed Darren, which is what he needs. He needs to feel that support coming from us, his fans, and rightfully so. In this incident, he was 100% right. He did nothing wrong, and we've got to show our support to him. So to everyone that posted a comment and showed support to Darren, I can tell you now it means a lot. They see it. The whole family sees it. Trevor, Sharon, Brad, Zan, Darren, Courts, everyone involved sees it, and it helps. Put yourself in that situation where you're getting battered again, and you might feel you're alone, and then you see that and you realize you're not alone, and you've got the support of everyone. That's it. Rob, everyone there is paid by Dorna, Ray. Yeah, it is. Let's see. We all fully agree with you, Rob. Let's talk about the race. Okay, let's talk about the race now, Jacques. Let's scroll down and see. Geez, there's a lot of comments here. Okay, let's talk about the race. Let's start with Saturday. Well, let me go through the weekend with you. So Friday, great weather, fantastic. Brad, a little bit disappointing in this new practice format that they got. It was the first time it kind of got used, but again, Brad's result on Sunday was through the work that him and his team did on the Friday. They knew Saturday was going to be a problem. It was clear as day for anyone in the UK. We knew Friday was going to be okay, Saturday was going to rain, Sunday was going to be okay. So Brad and them focused on race pace laps on the Friday, not necessarily fast lap times. In FP2 or P2 or whatever, the faster lap times came, and Brad made it straight into Q2, which was fantastic. Unfortunately, the rain and again some bad decisions made by race direction and stuff in the qualifying hampered Brad, and he had to start from 10th, which wasn't so bad for the sprint race because of the conditions in it, but it hampered him for the Sunday race day. I remember seeing Bjorn Esmond not long after the qualifying on Saturday, and I said, 10th not bad, because the sprint race, how much are riders going to commit in those kind of conditions? And there's more to lose for the likes of Pecco, Brad, Martin, Bezzecchi than to gain. Sunday is the big piece of the pie. Saturday, so Brad start 10th and just gauge and make your way. But and Bjorn made the valid point of, but it's not about Saturday. He's qualified 10th for Sunday, and Sunday is where we know we've got the pace and the draw. So anyway, Brad made it work. Saturday, bad start, wheel spun off the line. And then just cooked the tire trying to come through the field. That was it. That was his debrief on Saturday. Just overcooked the rear tire after a bad start and just couldn't make any progress. We saw Jack Miller at the start, fine, overcooked his tire, and no progress was made. Sunday, better start from Brad. Although if you watch it again, did anyone? And I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom comments. Yes, I'll get all the fresh comments. Did anyone see Brad shunt into the side of Martin? So we all know Martin dropped back early on in the race and had to fight his way through. Brilliant ride. It was Brad Binder that shunted him in turn one. I watched it again this morning, and it was a good little shunt by Brad. Brad made a good start and then got late into the brakes and went in a little bit of contact with racing incident. Listen, racing incident as far as I'm concerned. Turn one, especially using that part of the straight now for Silverstone this year compared to last year, and that was a mind boggle of note. Last year I had Silverstone sussed. This year I rocked up and it was like I went to the paddock in the pits where it was last year, and I was like, well, where is everybody? I know they're in the international, the Formula One pits. Oh, where's that? Hop off, walk 4 countries and then climb on a shuttle. Anyway, he got sandwiched between him and Marini though. He did. He got sandwiched. That's what I'm saying. It's a racing incident. So Brad kind of wanted to go and then kind of squeezed and went for a gap, and there was contact with Marini. Anyway, like Martin, I mean, I didn't see it initially because I saw Martin go off, and then when I watched it again, I was like, oh, that was Brad. They gave him a good shunt. Anyway, so another kind of dodgy start to the race, and at one point, your Brad was making up a position here and there, and then all of a sudden that progress came, that Sunday man came, and you're like, yes, this is brilliant. And this is where I take my hat off to Pecco Bagnaia, because once he got out front, Pecco, he is. You watch that man on the side of the track, and it's just, it's poetry in motion. With Brad and Jack, they do this like aggressive super motard sliding into the corner, but it looks aggressive, but they got it all under control and it works. And that's I think where the biggest changes happened this year for the KTM is the bike's a bit more freer for them to ride, if you know what I mean. It just lets them ride the bike a little bit more. Whereas Pecco Bagnaia on the Ducati just does it like he floats into the corner. He just goes, and he just bangs it down that seamless gearbox, and it just floats. And he really is spectacular. They're all spectacular to watch, don't get me wrong, but Pecco Bagnaia is at one with that machine. And when he got out front in the race, thought, okay, this is going to be hard. Bezzecchi shot. I think he forgot his brake marker or just forgot at what part of the track he was. There was no ways he was going to stop that. And down he went. And again, this is it. He risked more on Saturday and gained points and did well. But in the main race, where it all counts, he threw it away. So yeah, Pecco did a fantastic job. And like I said, the only mistake he made was when he got passed by Aleix Espargaro and then ran onto the green. Pecco is like a 30-year-old whiskey. Smooth. I like that, Lee Bennett. I like that. I like that kind of comment. Does that sliding not hurt the tire? Who's asking this? It's a very good question. Let me go back up here. Let's talk the green paint. Pecco, I see nothing. Oh, no. Where's this now? Someone asked about the sliding. Where is it? Jeez, my eyes are getting so bad. I can just... Oh, there we go. Does that sliding not hurt the tire life? Dustin Delaport. Dustin... I think yes and no in a way. They've got the bike set up that the weight when the rear is doing that, the weight is very much on the front. So the rear is it's sliding, but it's not necessarily gripping the tire that's tearing the tire, if you know what I mean. It doesn't have as much weight on the back as you think. So it's I said Pecco was floating, and it is almost that the rear tires just floating. But remember, you very much, not on the full side of the tire. There's a big patch on the center of that tire where it's a very hard compound in many ways, and the sides are, a bit softer for the track. So it's a good question, and I think one that Simon Crafar would really be able to answer in a bigger scope with more kind of detail. I remember, just from when I used to race, the only way I could go into a corner was by going sideways. I couldn't go into a corner straight. It just felt weird. I had to line the corner up, on the entry by going sideways, and didn't really suffer any kind of extreme tire wear from it. It was just, a riding preference. So, I know I haven't really answered the question, but a good question to keep for Simon Crafar. There's no doubt about that. Saw what happened to Jack when he shunted. Yeah, saw what happened. Saw nothing happen when Jack got shunted off by Maverick Vinales. Dylan, you make a very good point. If Darren's move was a long lap penalty, why wasn't Maverick's? Maverick went in with no intention to really stop. And Darren's incident it wasn't Darren offline. So it wasn't the rider that got penalized that was offline that created this incident. Jake Dixon was the rider offline that created this incident. But the rider that was online, with every other rider, got penalized anyway. So and Maverick Vinales was never going to make that corner, and he used Jack Miller as a berm, basically. And again, like you said, no penalty. So why is there these inconsistencies? How is that looked at and gone? Is it because Miller didn't crash? Well, it ruined Miller's race effectively. It shunted the guy, to Wales. It's and like you said, there's nothing. So there's lots of inconsistency there. So anyway, yeah, then Aleix Espargaro, brilliant move. You know what? Aleix Espargaro can can sometimes come across as a very cocky man, and he is in many ways. I'm right, you're wrong. I've been doing this for a long time. I know certainly a lot of riders complain about him in the safety commission meetings. But yeah, you can't help but like Aleix Spargo. I think his social media is brilliant. He gives us a little bit of a little bit of a scope into his everyday life. He's phenomenally fit. He's in such great shape considering he is the age that he is. And then, I fully respect a family man like that, a father that is, his kids are everything, his family's everything, his wife's everything, and they go all around the world together. And then when he came and celebrated the win in the pits and he's got his two kids there hugging, I mean, a dad seeing that, I just go, oh man, that's just got to be the greatest feeling ever, when I make my boy a nice toasted cheese and he gives me that hug, like, thank you, Dad. It's the greatest feeling. So imagine winning a MotoGP race and getting that kind of hug. So yeah, listen, massive, massive respect to Aleix Spargo. I think it was a brilliant win. Aprilia got something right that weekend because Miguel Oliveira looked fantastic. Maverick, despite the shunt, was brilliant. Sprint race on the podium, right in the mix there again. Raul Fernandez, I'll talk about just now in kind of my overview of what I took out of this weekend. I'll talk about him just now, but it was good to see Aprilia back. But they need those kind of tracks, those long, wide tracks. They need those, and the more start-stop ones, they seem to be battling a little bit at the moment. So anyway, listen, great to see you. I want to see more. I want to see Honda. I want to see Yamaha back up there, because that's all that's missing now is the Japanese bikes up there. And talking about Fabio, Brad got penalties for the same move. You're right, Dylan. Fabio, Brad, they all got penalties for the same thing. Just my takings from. I'm just scrolling up here again to finish off with the race. Anyway, Pecco Bagnaia second, Brad Binder third. Fantastic ride from Brad Binder. 10th on the grid, 40's way up, kept himself in the mix. Looked at one stage he was going to drop off, fought back. Fantastic race management from Brad Binder on the KTM. They're right there. He went ahead of Zarco in the championship again. He's just losing grip on Pecco Bagnaia at the front, but certainly top two is still well within reach. And the lead, listen, as I just said, Brad Binder and the KTM are never going to give up. And 93 points is what Pecco did last year. There's no reason why he can't do it this year. So great race, Martin. Brilliant ride from Jorge Martin after he got shunted off 40's way back. I was just surprised that riders like Iker Lecuona, DJ Antonio, I mean, from the Moto2 race, the track. I'm talking the sprint race now. I'm talking the sprint race now on Saturday. From the Moto2 qualifying, the track was dry. It looked very, very dry. And I'm just surprised the DJ Antonios, the Nakagamis, and those guys, when they need to lose, didn't just gamble on slicks, and just go for it. Because I think it would have worked. That track was bone dry by the end of that race. But getting back to Sunday's race, I'm going to say a couple of big things that I noticed and then I took out of Silverstone. The Japanese bikes are just shocking. Honda, listening to Taka Nakagami's debrief on Saturday, very honest. He just said, we haven't got any kind of direction. We haven't got any direction. Honda are focusing so much on aero. They literally took a KTM front fairing and aero and painted it LCR colors and put it on Nakagami's bike. Stefan Bradl at Jerez has been testing a Ducati fairing that they took and sprayed Honda in carbon fiber. They're focusing so much on aero, and every complaint from every Honda rider, Marc Marquez, Joan Mir, Nakagami, even Iker Lecuona this weekend was, there's no drive. We get on the power, and there's just no drive. The bike doesn't accelerate. The electronics are holding the bike back too much, and then all of a sudden it kicks in, and then there's this huge disconnect. Then it overloads the front mid corner because they just said the electronics and the engine management are just terrible. And my question to Nakagami was, are Honda focusing too much on aero and not enough on electronics and engine management? And he said yes, straight. He said yes. And my next question was, with the problems that you're feeling with the rear of the bike, with no grip, engine management, these electronics that aren't letting you ride the motorbike, putting the aero on that, can you even feel it? Doesn't make any difference. And he says, he said, you can feel a little bit of a difference, but with so much going on at the back, you can't really judge what the front's doing, if you know what I mean. So, they sit in those debriefs just deflated. In that sprint race, I mean, Marc Marquez said it himself, realized where he was, and he slowed down to ride behind Jean Mir to see what the Honda's doing. Marc Marquez. I think they made a pact and said, you know what, let's all just ride around at the back and prove a point to Honda. I don't think they had to try very hard. I think that's where they were. The 29 seconds off the leader in a 10-lap sprint race. 29 seconds, Marc Marquez. I mean, it's just horrendous. Going into the weekend, his comments kind of solidified where they are. We need to have a more realistic approach. And then he rides around at the back the whole weekend. I mean, it's, I don't talk about the Marc Marquez retiring. I don't think he'll make that call. I think he's got too much to prove in himself to make that call. But this weekend was the first weekend where I went and I looked at Marc Marquez, in the debriefs and that, and with no answers in the near future coming from Honda, and him not being able to kind of get any other ride at the moment and being forced to stay with Honda. I don't know what the future holds for Marc Marquez. All I know is that he's miserable. He's not happy there. Of course he's not. He wants to win races. I think he can win races. If Alex Marquez can win a race in a sprint race, no disrespect to Alex, but Marc on a Ducati or any other bike could potentially do that as well. Jean Mir, as Mohammed said, another crash in the main race. Marc Marquez, another crash. Hasn't finished a main feature race since, was it Sepang last year or the year before? I mean, it's just Honda. It's just shocking. And basically what Nakagami, Mir, and Marquez had to say, Ikalekawan is still, a bit new to the project. They all three just basically said Honda need to give the feedback back to the rider. They're not trusting the rider. They're not letting the rider do it. And the Japanese mentality is right. This is the problem. This is the information, right? It's got to go to a boardroom, sit down, and have a board meeting about it. And there's a process to it. Where the Europeans act very fast. If there's a wing this week, then Ducati will have a wing next week. If Ducati have a wing, then Aprilia and KTM will have a wing. You know what? There's more action happening at a faster pace compared to Honda and Yamaha. Yamaha again just blatantly, okay, well, we'll do the Stegosaurus spines like Ducati on the tailpiece. KTM went and made their own, shopping trolley handle thing, whatever you want to call it. Aprilia have done their own thing. Honda and Yamaha are just going, okay, well, somebody sneak into that pit and just steal that so we can copy it and put it back. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And Taka Nakagami, David Emmett asked the question to Nakagami, you've been on Honda for a while now. When did this bike change like this? And he said about 2 years ago, when Mark was, or 3 years ago, when Mark had the big high side. When Mark had the big high side, Honda have gone very reserved. They've made the electronics a lot safer. He got broken English, but he said they've made the electronics a lot safer. So they've taken a lot away from the ride. And he says, they get on the gas, nothing happens. And Nakagami said in both races, he just presses buttons, changes maps to try and get something. And he just says nothing works. Nothing changes. No matter what button he pushes, no matter what he does, nothing changes. And they sit there like, we don't know what to say anymore. And the simple answer to it is, and it's not that simple, but the simple answer is trust your rider. And the same can be said for Yamaha. Trust your riders, listen to what they're telling you, and let them ride the motorcycle. Honda aren't trusting their riders. They've got a massive crash bill. I don't want to even know what their crash bill must be this year. And they are obviously taking a safe approach, going, well, we've got to save money or make the bike safe. And that's not helping because, when I climb onto a modern day production superbike, a BMS 1000 or something, with my racing history, and I go ride it. Okay, I haven't done it for a long time, but I go ride it. Those electronics sometimes, think they're helping me, but they're not helping me. It's the reverse role. It's taking away control from me, which means I don't feel in control, which means I feel unsafe. If I go into the corner and I bang it down from 6 to second, I know that I'm going to lock the rear wheel up and slide, but it's what I want to do. And I know how much braking I have to do that. And I know what I need. I know what I need to do for that process to work. But if this production bike electronics goes, oh, the rear wheel's gone too much, it needs to straighten up, and the front brake goes ABS, really, you know what I mean? Then it takes all that control away from me, and I can't ride the bike that I want to. And I've had it in a couple of times where I've gone into a corner and, the bike's worked out that, okay, less engine braking, okay, more engine braking, and then it's hit the front and tucked the front, and I've gone, how the hell did that happen? It's because the bike's trying to do the thinking for me. And I think that's what's happening with Honda. They're trying to make their bike do the thinking and almost ride itself in many ways, rather than just going, you trust the riders, give them more. Like Nakagami said, yeah, I'm in control of my right wrist. I know more often than not what is too much and what's too little. Give me that control. That's where we need to go back and start. And this is what Nakagami is saying. And I know Tafiq's saying, yeah, Taka needs to step in as a test rider, and he is. Taka Nakagami is a real life MotoGP race weekend test rider. That is his job. He's not there. Honda haven't hired him to go win a championship or races. They know he's not that kind of rider. He is there to right, bang the swing on, go try it. Bang the swing on, go try it. But what he's saying is, they're not using me as a test rider in the way I want them to. I want them to say, right, less electronics, less this, engine management, go try that. And they're not giving him the freedom to be a test rider, to try these things. And that's where Honda are getting it wrong. And the same can be said for Yamaha. They don't listen to their riders, and that's their biggest downfall. If you look at where KTM are and Aprilia are, yes, they'll be the first ones to tell Honda, listen, where you are, that's where we started. It takes 7 years. It takes 7 years of listening to your riders to get where we are, and millions and millions and millions. The problem is Honda don't have that time. They need results now. That's why they're doing this desperate. Just bolt on a Ducati fairing. Just bolt on Ducati Aero. You know what I mean? And it is, Cheryl. It's very sad. This is where it is. I don't know when it's going to change. When is it going to change? Honda and Yamaha aren't going to just all of a sudden change tradition and change their lifestyle and their whole thought process that won them all these championships overnight, but they need to. KTM went out and spent the money on bringing Ducati engineers into their project. You look at the Honda garage, and apart from Marc Marquez's, Spanish spanner boys, taking wheels off and that, the actual guys making the decisions in the background with electronics, engine management, are all Japanese. I hate to tell you, you're getting it wrong. Get some European minds in. Listen, it's also hard for Europeans. No, Europeans don't want to go live in Japan and that whole culture shock when you can go work for Ducati and Aprilia and KTM and still live in Europe. So there's a lot more to it. It's not as easy as just employ those guys and make it work. But something needs to be done. So yeah, a big note that I took out is Honda's problems are a lot more than we actually think they are. Another big point that I took out, Fabio Quartararo is a beaten man. He's a beaten man. There's no more smiley faced Quartararo. Yes, he puts on that smile every now and then in front of the camera, off camera. That buzzing Quartararo that I saw last year, hugging, and then certainly the year before as well. Smiling, hugging every kid. Taking pride in his autograph with every single one. And I promise you, it's little things like this. I know it sounds crazy, but it's little things like this that you can see in riders' confidence. When a rider's confident and someone comes and asks for an autograph, and I saw it this weekend. I've got a happy, confident Quartararo autograph, and I've got a this weekend miserable, I'm hating life, I don't want to be there, Fabio Quartararo autograph. And I should actually take a photo and show you the difference. And Lee was there. Lee was there, saw it as well. Harvey Taylor was there with me, and he saw it. So Fabio Quartararo is now this. He walks around literally, and I'm not exaggerating this. He walks around like this, and then when someone comes and wants a photo, Fabio photo, and then it's back. It's this miserable person, and it's showing in his results. Um, Morbidelli was the better Yamaha rider this weekend, and just shows you how the mental game works. His future's, I think, decided. Yes, he's not going to be with Monster Energy Yamaha anymore. That's off his shoulders, and I think the move to VR46 Ducati is pretty much done. So he rode with a bit more freedom this weekend, Franco Morbidelli, and it showed in his performance. Still not there, and I think it's also because the bike's not there, but a bit more Franco Morbidelli was there, and he was walking around like this. Hey, and there was a buzz about him, which attracted a crowd to him. There was more of a crowd around Franco Morbidelli this weekend than I've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years. Whereas Fabio, the crowd wasn't there because the guy was miserable. And then he gets to a kid that's bought this cap for 40 or 50 pounds. It's his pride and joy. Please sign it. And the old Fabio would, hold that boy, take his cap, hold it, and with pride sign his autograph on it. Fabio this weekend would keep the cap on the kid's head and go like this. No 20, he signs it and then a 20, literally a scribble. Like I don't want to be here. You're irritating me. Just go. Literally. And it showed in his results. Fabio Quartararo, now, I know Yamaha is where it is, but, you start asking the other questions like, was Fabio, has the level just gone past where Fabio was? Was where Fabio won, was that his brick wall level? That is as fast as Fabio Quartararo can go. I tend to think not, but, certainly with the way the results are going, it could be. I think the main thing is that the Japanese are failing because it's Honda and Yamaha. If it was just Fabio and Yamaha, you could justify that argument a lot more. But because it's Marc Marquez, the mighty Marc Marquez, the mighty Honda, the mighty Yamaha, the Fabio, who was world champion 2 years ago, or just over a year ago, qualifying last. And then in that sprint race, I watched him for the first couple of laps riding in last place behind Lackawanna. He eventually got ahead of Lackawanna. I thought, right, here comes the charge. And then he sat in second last the entire race. The main race, again, did a good job to come from last. I think he got up to seventh at one stage, and then made the mistake of running into, was it Marini? I think, losing his fairing and out of the race. But yeah, I really did take note of Fabio. And I just saw this deflated guy that was just leave me the hell alone. Is the vibe I got from Fabio, and it's showing in his results. Do we see a new type of energy in the Yamaha camp with Rins coming? Tafik, very good question. And yes, I think it is a vital signing for Yamaha to get Rins in there. Firstly, because he's got Suzuki information and feeling, got a little bit of Honda information and feeling. Whether that's worth anything, I don't know. I think every bit of information at the moment is very valuable to Yamaha. Yamaha's biggest handbrake at the moment is no satellite team, and the only information you're getting is from Fabio Quartararo and Franco Morbidelli, who only know Yamaha in MotoGP. They know nothing else. You look what Jack has brought in, the information that he brought into KTM, what a difference that has made. It's boosted him, the team, and it's boosted Brad Binder because it's brought in fresh ideas. Yes, the crew have come behind as well and made differences, but Jack's brought vital information with him. Frankie and Quartararo don't know how to fix a broken Yamaha because they don't know anything else. They only know that. So Rins, I think, will come in. I think he'll be a good rival to Fabio. He's going to make Fabio lift his game. Fabio's only had to deal with a deflated Franco Morbidelli the last couple of years. So he hasn't really had any pressure coming from the other side of the garage. And Rins is going to bring fresh ideas. This is what we did at Suzuki. When I won at Kota on the Honda, this is what we did. They need whatever they can get at the moment, Yamaha. So I think Rins is a fantastic signing. I think it's a great signing for Rins. Honda weren't really listening to him. he deserves a factory ride, Rins, and I think he's gonna do great things on that Yamaha. I really do. So fantastic signing. Franco Morbidelli, as I said, I think the VR46 deal is done. I think Bezzecchi will be going to Pramac. I think Zarco's days in MotoGP are numbered, not because he's not worthy. I think Zarco himself is also exhausted. He doesn't want to do this traveling and race weekends anymore. He still wants to ride his bike, but I think he wants to do it without the pressure of being in MotoGP. So I think Bezzecchi is going to Pramac alongside Martin. I think Morbidelli is fitting into VR46. The big question mark now is obviously LCR. We know over the weekend, LCR Honda came out and offered Johan Zarco a 2-year deal to join them. Zarco's not going to go there. He had a terrible exercise with KTM. We all know how that ended. He's exhausted as it is on a Ducati. He's not going to go to Honda where they need a fully focused, full energy Zarco. He's not going to do it. It's not going to happen. Unfortunately, LCR, realistically, their only option is Iker. I know a couple of years ago when he was kind of booted from MotoGP and Tech 3 KTM, we all thought it was a mistake and he's good enough to be in MotoGP. Is he? Yes, I know the Honda's battling in World Superbikes as well, but a good rider more often than not, can ride over problems. Lackawanna hasn't been able to do that in World Superbikes. And listen, you can't judge him on his wild card rides in MotoGP. He crashes motorbikes as well, so it's not looking like a good outcome for LCR and Honda. There's no doubt about it. But who else do they get? I mean, who else wants to go to that project? I don't know. Yeah, Stiggy, I see Zarco going to LCR, being offered a contract, rumored it has, and he's not going to. I can tell you from talking to people that I spoke to in the paddock, it's not going to happen. Zarco is not being booted from Pramac because he's not good enough. Zarco is almost saying, listen, guys, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. Whether he's got the energy to go to World Superbike and do it, which is, rumors are, the big rumor that he's going to stay on as a Ducati test rider, which I can see realistically happen because there still gets to ride a bike and that, which he wants to do. He just doesn't want the travel, the media, and all the hype that comes with MotoGP. He doesn't want that. He's exhausted from it. I see someone put there, I hope Zarco. Yeah, Colin, I really hope Zarco wins before he goes. I hope so too. I hope we see a Zarco win. And I was hoping he was going to be one of those riders that gambled in the Saturday sprint race, Going back to the sprint race, Alex Marquez finally picks up his first MotoGP win, but it's not really classified as a MotoGP win. So, yes, he's won a MotoGP sprint race, but as we see from the record books with Brad as well, it doesn't count as an actual MotoGP win. So, has he actually won a MotoGP race yet? Not just yet, but brilliant ride from Alex Marquez. Listen, he's another rider that you kind of watch every corner. I was watching him going, shit, is he going to crash? Is he going to crash? Is he going to crash? And he never put a foot wrong. He came under massive pressure from Bezzecchi. Brilliant win. Well done to the Cressini team. Love it. Always love it when a satellite team wins. Brilliant. Daz to LCR. Jeez, I don't know if I'd want Darren to go to LCR. Augusto Fernandez to Fiek. I know there is talk. There was a very interesting comment made in the Saturday debrief because he had a brilliant ride. He beat Brad in the Saturday sprint race even. And the last question from one of the journalists was that a good way to celebrate your new contract? And Augusta said, yeah, like cheeky. So I don't know if it was a sarcastic comment or if it was a real comment. Paulo Espargaro was back this weekend. Shame, definitely some some long-term damage to his lip. Jaw also looks still a little bit fragile and stuff. But it was great to have Paulo Espargaro there. He's a great character. Great with the fans as well. Great all-round great guy, and put in some decent performances. Considering if you think he rocked up back on the bike and was riding ahead of the likes of Marc Marquez and Fabio Quartararo and stuff, good on him. But if it's between Paulo Espargaro or Augusto Fernandez to make way for Pedro Acosta, I'll go Augusto Fernandez all day. Younger, healthier, fitter. and I'm talking fit as in, I mean this with the most respect as I can. Paulo Espargaro is in many ways damaged goods at the moment. Augusto Fernandez is young, fresh, determined, and I'm not saying Paulo Espargaro is not, but Augusto Fernandez is right in that prime. Paul is out of that prime. So I agree with Pedro Acosta coming in to that team in place of Paulo Espargaro, and Augusto Fernandez to me has done enough to warrant another year in MotoGP. Maybe they move him to Alcyon eventually. When Alcyon moves to KTM, they will have Augusto Tafiq. Could be. Could be. Listen, I'm done predicting MotoGP. Anything can happen in MotoGP now. You think just when you think you've got it all sussed, you don't. One thing I will say, and another big point that I take from the weekend, just to kind of wrap this up, is Raul Fernandez. Raul Fernandez to me is not MotoGP worthy. And I say this because this is where the question of Pedro Acosta comes in. Raul Fernandez and Remy Gardner dominated Moto2 a couple of years ago. Dominated, came into MotoGP and never really made it work. For whatever reason, there's two sides to a story, but they complained too much and they didn't put in enough effort, and KTM didn't treat them right. Whatever the story is. Anyway, Raul Fernandez was given a second chance with his Aprilia team. And his debrief this whole weekend was nothing but complain. It's not me, it's the bike. Complain. And there's no doubt he's a fast rider. They're all fast riders. But is he MotoGP worthy? No. To me, he's not. To me, he's not. He doesn't take it seriously enough. He's not as committed to it as he should be. And, I don't think he's MotoGP worthy. And why I go back to Pedro Acosta is we all saying, go up to MotoGP. You're dominating Moto2, go up to MotoGP. Well, Raul Fernandez and Remy Gardner did that in the same team. And, does that IO project in Moto2 kind of sugarcoat a lot of things? Does it overshine the actual talent that's there? I personally do think Pedro Acosta is a better rider than Remy Gardner and Raul Fernandez. Remy Gardner, not doing anything in World Superbikes is kind of proving that, you just, nothing against you, but you're not good enough for MotoGP. And that's where I'm saying Raul Fernandez is not good enough for MotoGP in my eyes. And the question, and it would be a big question to see how Pedro Acosta does, because it's kind of that same piece of the puzzle as the Raul Fernandez and Remy Gardner. It'll be the same for Pedro Acosta. Yes, you're going to potentially go win the Moto2 World Championship on an IO Moto2 bike. It's the best package to be on. Coming to MotoGP when the playing field's a lot more leveled out, the competition's more. Are you going to be able to shine? Let's wait and see. But those were the big things I took out of the weekend. Honda and where they are, it's a lot worse than what we think and what we thought, certainly what I did. Fabio Quartararo, just not the rider, the personality that he used to be. He's just defeated, absolutely defeated. And someone's got to wake him up, and someone's got to just recharge him somehow, because it's a long season still ahead. He's got a lot of work to do on that Yamaha if he's going to get it ready for next year. It's too soon to be giving up, Fabio. It's way too soon. And that's where you got to take your hat off to the likes of Brad Binder, because he's been in this situation with KTM, but they worked hard. They dug themselves out. Brad always had a positive outlook, and rightfully so. He's reaping the rewards of his hard work. Another one, Enea Bastianini, last year, Grassini team, family-run team, a nice kind of homely environment. When things don't go well, you get an arm around your shoulder, like, unlucky, but we're here for you. Like that motherly hug. You don't get that from factory to caddy. And Enea Bastianini, again, is that same guy. Walks around like this. When he has to, does that smile, and then it's back. All the life has been taken out of Enea Bastianini. And he did. He had a tough start to the year with the injuries and that, but it's just not clicking for him. It's just not working for him. And Enea Bastianini looks like that kind of rider. And this is why Franco Morbidelli is going to shine in that VR46, Ducati team, because not just the bike, but the atmosphere around him. He's going to get those familiar faces. He's going to get that cuddle that he needs. Some riders need cuddles. Some riders don't, can sort themselves out. Some riders need cuddles. And Ayub Bashanini needs a cuddle, and a big cuddle, and not a big red Ducati cuddle. He needs another cuddle. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how that's going to work. He's in a big shadow there with Pecco Bagnaia, who's Ducati's blue-eyed boy. And I don't care what anyone says, Pecco will get, will get more of the treatment compared to Anea, because he's number one and he's doing it. Until Anea does it, he's not going to get it. Yeah, so another thing I saw was a very deflated Anea Bashanini compared to last year, where he was thriving and he was confident, and he's always been a quiet character. Even last year, he would sit in the corner just by himself, doesn't really have an assistant to help him with things, likes to do things his own way, but he had that family environment. He always had that to fall back on. With Ducati, it doesn't feel like he has that, and it's showing. Very deflated, and you can see it in the results. All these riders that I'm talking about, you can see it in their results. And like I said, it's simple things like a signature and how they take pride in their signature. Pecco, I'll show you the 6 or 7 Pecco autographs that I got this weekend, and they all just about spot on. I'll show you all the Brad, spot on, the Jacks, spot on, the Fabio. I had 2 Fabio signatures, and they couldn't be more different. They were worlds apart. One was okay, kind of. The other one was, listen, just get out of my face. Really. So little things like that you pick up on when you're in the paddock. Acosta is signed till the end of 2024. All 4 KTM riders have contracts till the end of the year. Daryl, I know that, but one thing I also know is contracts mean absolutely nothing in the MotoGP paddock these days. Paul Espargaro is saying the same thing. I've got a contract. Augusta is saying, I've got a contract. Okay, well, where's Pedro Acosta going to go? There's this talk of this IO team and 2 more KTM or Gas or Husqvarna bikes coming in. I don't know if that's going to happen. I know the LCR, KTM Gas thing is done. That's definitely not going to happen. So let's see. They can only buy into another team. Sticky, you're right. Thanks, Rob. Have a good week. Enjoy Austria Spielberg next week. Can't wait. Rian, thank you so much for tuning in. Can't wait as well. Yep, it's time to wrap up. Yaku, will Aprilia bail out RNF financially if they need, or does KTM stand a chance of buying them out? Razlan did an interview on their Instagram platform saying there's always going to be talk during the mid-season. We are absolutely fine. We've had no contact with KTM. We are more than happy with Aprilia. Not going to happen. Within the paddock, I have heard big rumors that they are financially struggling, that they could potentially end the season with 1 bike with Miguel Oliveira and potentially just scrap Raul and save themselves that budget. What will happen going forward, I don't know. Potentially KTM goes and says, cool, we'll buy you out. We'll make you financially stable, but you've got to run Husqvarnas and you've got to run Pedro Acosta and Marc Marquez. I don't know. Listen, I don't know. These are just things that get spilt out into the atmosphere. Let's see. Dustin, as I said, DORNA have said no more bikes staying as the grid for 2024. Again, that's what I heard. Things aren't going to change. There aren't going to be 2 more Yamahas next year. There aren't going to be 2 more KTMs. 2025 is a different story. But next year, as Sticky said, grid will stay the exact same. So let's wait and see. That's where we're going to leave it tonight. Chris van Wyk, cheers, Rob. Have a lekker week, and let's hope all goes well for our boys. Good night, everybody. Have a good one, Wimpy. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it, even though it was delayed and stuff. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate all the support. Stay tuned to Motor Rider World for more updates on not only MotoGP, World Superbikes, bike tests. The next magazine will come out later this week. I've nearly finished it. I know it's kind of getting later and later, and it's very disjointed when the mag comes out. But it's just the reality we live in at the moment with my full-time job here, and squeezing this is all kind of on the side type thing. So I try and find as much time as I can for it. And yeah, big thank you to all. Keep supporting, hit the like button, share it, please. The more likes, shares, the more Motor Rider Worlds out there, the more footprint we have, the more I can go to Dorna and say, you see it works, give us more. And the more, I can go to potential advertisers and take this to the next level. But without money, that's not going to happen. But I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. I'm going to go downstairs and make sure my car starts so that I can drive to Manchester tomorrow for a family outing. So let's see. Until then, thank you so much. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.